And we are live. At least I think I'm live. It should have the screen starting now. There is a bit of a lag always. My settings look good. I just click start, so hopefully it's starting. I'm waiting to check, so I guess that we're finding out right now what the lag is going to be. How is everyone? My sound will be quiet, but it will not be noisy like it usually is. I can make the sound more, but I'm going for quality over quantity. And there we go. So that is the lag. That's about what? It's about 40 seconds, so that's long as usual, but that can't be helped. How are you all? How's it going? So I'm going to refresh the vid to get the comments and get everything in place, and to freeze the stream to save the bandwidth. And how are you all? Welcome to Tokyo tonight. First, what is it? It's the 2nd of March 2014. Hope you're all doing well. I just want to get straight into it. Got lots of great comments. I've got a ton of stories and stuff to talk about. So and I'm still working tonight. I've got to get some stuff done for tomorrow. So I'm definitely going to get it within an hour today, unless you guys make it like totally interesting. Tweet, do all that good stuff to get a good crowd in. And I guess first thing we should start off with is the intro title. So boom. And I'm back. So how is everyone? Thanks for all the people who came in early. So many people today came in and put their comments in early. Comments and questions, topics and whatnot. You can keep adding them in now. I'm just going to knock them out in order. Let the games begin. I got a bit of a funny throat lately. It's part of winter, I guess. It gets really dry at night. So indeed, the taste has got the very important question of why Japanese green peppers are so small, to which I already responded earlier. It's not how big or small they are. It's how you use them. Please. That's what most Japanese will tell you when you say that their peppers are small. I don't understand why they take it so personally. Hello, London, 2:01 p.m. I guess you're there with Michael Gillen Pickett. Indeed, as he is saying. Modified, yo. We've got Raz Al Ghul in London, I guess. We've got Dan Scusser in Poland, watching with cats. It's good to know cats are watching through the internet, because I'm allergic. But cats are welcome via YouTube. Andy-san, good to see you, man. Long time no see. And indeed, White Magic 4, thanks for the feedback on the sound. Good to know. Chris Yeriatsiang, from my man in Switzerland. Yum Yum Sesame, long time no see. How's it going? You're in Japan right now, right? And you're doing all sorts of awesome stuff there with Megwin. So it looks like we're set. So I'm going to go back up to the top comments. I'm going to start going down, and just if you are inspired to add more questions or whatever, add them down the bottom. I'm going to do my best to keep up to get this real time, but we'll see if I make it. So first question on the thread is from Rob Quincy. And I'm going to see if I can update the topics on the video info as we go along. So let's see, the question is swimming popular in Japan? If this is too distracting, let me know. First question, is swimming popular in Japan? I'd say yes, it is. Yes, it is. I mean, you can tell at the Olympics, Japan's always very well represented among swimming nations. Yeah, lots of swimming pools. Swimming sports are very popular. I would say it's a pretty popular, Japan often wins a few gold medals in the pool, so it's probably, as big as in the UK. Not quite as big as Australia or New Zealand, where I'm from. But, everyone goes to the beach. Everywhere is close to the beach. Probably it's more common to meet people in Japan who can't swim than in Australia, just because in Australia and New Zealand, everyone lives close to the beach and there's no one to supervise all the beaches. So I think it's part of normal education there that you learn how to swim. So that's a particularly high level. But I find, I think swimming is very popular in Japan. Most people seem to know how to do it. So yeah, that's an interesting question. Next one is from Zero Sonico, and I always say Zero Snico in my head whenever I read that, but of course it's Zero Sonico. Indoor snowboarding. Snowboarding. Next question is from Zero Sonico asking, where is the indoor snowboard complex, and shall we go in the summer? Actually, I looked this up. Japan, or Tokyo, famously had a huge place called Zaus, which was built like back in during the bubble, and it was a huge indoor ski slope, and it shut down about 3 or 4 years ago, and apparently it never made money. But it was kind of awesome. The upside is it made way for the first IKEA in badly pronounced English. IKEA, as everyone calls it in Japan. It made way for IKEA out in Funabashi. However, there is apparently an indoor ski slope in Yokohama called Snova, Snova, Yokohama, which I've never been to before. So yeah, I'd be up for going checking that out. But yeah, and down in Yokohama as well, they've got well, again, these things open and close faster than I can keep up. But there's a big indoor wave pool down there where you can actually surf and bodyboard and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, there are a few casualties of the bubble and the fallout from all of that and whatnot. But certainly, yes, indoor snowboarding complex. There's one still in Yokohama, and there are a few around Japan. Although the big famous one, Zaus, is now a big furniture shop. What can you do? Sometimes life is like that. And indeed, Robin Quincy coming back. Wouldn't you want to swim outside the summer? Indeed. I think there are a lot of indoor swimming pools. In fact, there are. No question. There's a lot of indoor swimming pools. My son is in swimming lessons right now. And the waiting list for the swimming lessons, the popularity of them makes it pretty demanding on parents to get them into lessons. So definitely public swimming pools and swimming is a big thing in Japan. Next comment is from Dan Scusser. So the question is, I want to move to Japan for 1 year and continue working freelance for foreign companies as you are now, and you have the money and contracts lined up. Can you do that on a working holiday visa? Okay, working in Japan. Well, first thing, I'm not an immigration expert at all, let alone an immigration lawyer in Japan. So anything, of course, I don't know. However, my impression is certainly the working holiday visa is a fantastic visa. While the theory of the working holiday visa is that you're only supposed to like work occasionally to support your traveling around for a year. I've worked in Japan like full time while I was on a working holiday visa for 3 months. It's a 1 year visa. I actually wasted it using it only for 3 months, but it was kind of a gamble that paid off. It got me some work experience. I was able to use when I graduated. As far as I understand, I don't think there's anything stopping you from working, as you say, using contracts and doing your freelance stuff during that 1 year period. Of course, you're going to have a visa sponsor after that, so I would suggest trying to find some way to get a sponsor for your visa within that 1 year. But yes, if you're from one of the many countries, pretty much it's only the US, and it's because these are reciprocal arrangements. Japanese can go on working holiday visas, to Poland or USA or to UK or New Zealand, Australia, even South Korea. And in return, they offer these 1 year free working holiday visas for people, depending on the country. Sometimes it's up to 25 years old, some it's up to 30. America doesn't offer that just because American immigration is tough and it's a two-way street. So, if your immigration is tough, it'll be harder for you to travel as well, which is unfortunate for the Americans watching. But indeed, for the working holiday visa, yeah, you pretty much have a 1 year free travel, live, work visa. I think that there are technically restrictions, but for what it sounds like you want to do, it sounds like you can probably do that. Oh, and you're coming to that now. Sorry, character limit. So basically, you want to know if the holiday visa has a limit on hours. Since it has a limit on hours, but you'd be working many more full time from home, would that actually be a crime? Better to self-sponsor visa. That's a good question. I don't know. Well, again, like you say, and like you seem to understand, there is technically a limit on hours. I would say, especially if you're working on your own, it's probably not rigidly enforced. I doubt you're going to get raided by immigration and they're going to ask for your own timesheets on your own work. That said, of course, I would not encourage you to ever actually break the rules. You don't know, it's not just a matter of being kicked out, but you also wouldn't be allowed back in. So I don't know, be sensible. I don't think it's very easy to sponsor your own visa, and I think you can probably do what you want to do on the working holiday visa, but of course, be careful, and if you really think you are going to exceed that or you're going to need to do that, certainly look for a regular sponsor. But that said, I've never heard of anyone having trouble specifically with working on a working holiday visa, at least not, doing regular work. So I think you should be okay, but of course, be very careful. Indeed, it's good that it sounds like you've checked the rules and definitely stick to those. Zero Sonico actually has a question as well about visas, so I'll stick on this. So that's not working, but depending on so he's responding to Dan Scusser, saying that there's exactly, since you're working from home, you shouldn't have trouble. But yes, you shouldn't have trouble. Don't push your luck, but unless you're keeping really, really detailed timesheets and of all your own overtime, which I suppose you would be because you'd be charging the clients. But I think you're probably okay anyway. So coming down, Ryan Platts is asking about obligatory chocolate. This is an important one for all the ladies, or for all the men looking to impress ladies. Obligatory chocolate. Well, to tell you the truth, I don't pay attention to these rules too much, but of course, for those of you who know, Japan has this weird thing where on Valentine's Day, women, actually it's not weird, it's fantastic. Women have to give chocolate to men on Valentine's Day, except they call it obligatory chocolate, where, men have to return the favor on White Day. I think the original idea was that it was supposed to be the, I really like you kind of thing, and then if you like her back, a month later you return the favor. But somewhere along the line, the chocolate companies figured out that they could just sell more chocolate if they just allowed women to machine gun chocolate to everybody, and everyone would have this obligation to return cookies. It's not chocolate for White Day, it's cookies that you pay back on March 14th, 1 month later, so coming up soon. The complication on top of that, however, is as a gaijin guy, there seems to be an expectation that as a gaijin guy, you're going to buy chocolates for the lady on February 14th. So you don't quite get the full oyaji benefit of being treated like a Japanese guy who can just sit and accept chocolates from everywhere on Valentine's Day. I try to keep my my gaijin cred up to a reasonable level by buying. I'll get some chocolates, but I'll try to buy certainly, and do it the Western way. In terms of how it goes back, it's random. You can give chocolate back to or cookies back to whoever gives them to you. I don't know how that White Day thing even started, whether it was like a big cartel, the chocolate cartel did a deal with the cookie cartel that they were going to split the holidays. And how did KFC break in on making December like the extra Valentine's Day? Congrats to them. But in terms of your question, as there is obligatory chocolate and homemade chocolate, could it be? Is it obvious which one it is? I think it's generally this idea that women who are trying really, really hard to impress the love of their lives will make homemade chocolate, and it's kind of a funny theme of TV shows about how to make homemade chocolate for your man, or it's a common theme of dramas that they really mess it up. I don't think I've ever had homemade chocolate, at least not from a girl. There's a French patissier on my rugby team, and he used to bring all the messed up chocolates, and that was pretty good actually, but no, not from a girl. Certainly isn't a thing as a dude that I think you'd have to worry about, and frankly, it's kind of silly to begin with. But yes, such as that is. Right, Stubuya is asking if I have a 500 yen coin nearby. Let me see. Do I? No. Well, that answers that question. Apparently, I don't. But by the way, I don't understand the question or the thing. You're saying that you just found out that 500 is written in the zeros of the 500. I don't get that. Although I'm intrigued, and I'm going to go back and look at that. If anyone can elaborate on that, 500ception. Okay, I didn't know that. So yeah, some compliments there to the detective work of Zero Sonico, also complimented by Razel Gul. Zero Sonico apparently is the internet, in which case I've actually got like a bunch of questions as to why the hell my connection is always so bad. Um, so yes, Yum Yum Sesame also pointing out that Japanese don't swim; they just like to sit in the water, which is also kind of true. The soft distortion has a good one. Oh, let's say that is a good one, which I think you're trying to get us to talk about on 2.5 Oyajis. So, male versus female Japanese. And I've touched on this before, but of course, Japanese language, as a, this is a dog, we go to the zoo kind of a language is pretty simple. It's probably up there with Bahasa as one of the, easiest languages in the world. However, when you start getting into Japanese as a day-to-day use, the real complicating factors are not so much the grammar or pronunciation. It's that they've got all these different regional accents. They've got these like 10 different levels of politeness for different people that vary according to whoever's in the room at a given time. And of course, there's male and female language, which interferes with all of that. And this is something which foreigners in particular, especially guys who learn Japanese through their girlfriends, run into, that they, even when you try to speak with all the characteristics that would make you masculine by English standards, they don't work if you're using the wrong vocab which you picked up off your girlfriend in Japanese. So what constitutes? So it's not really the pronunciation that's the problem. So this is kind of the point. You can sound as butch as you like, but if you're saying, 私こんなの全然好きじゃないわ, you still sound, you sound butch, but you also sound effeminate. So, not that there's anything wrong with that sort of thing. It just depends on what kind of signals you want to be throwing out there. And as well, like so for example, some of the keywords reference the self as atashi. Not watashi, but atashi is a pretty common one that women use. Watashi is a little bit too polite and can come off a bit effeminate. Ore is kind of a rough men's only one. I use ore pretty much just for everything, which some people say is inappropriate for work, but I think that they're wrong, but you have to be careful with it. Formal situations I might switch to boku or watashi or even jibun. Jibun is another good one for guys. It's a bit of a sports player's kind of reference to self. But atashi is a problem. And ending with wa, apparently in Osaka they do say yakatsu wa. They say that a lot in Osaka. And it's okay for guys to say, but in Tokyo, in standard Japanese, adding wa to the end is it's an expression of emphasis used by women, not by men. And you got little things like sometimes you hear women speaking formally adding arigatou gozaimasu, which don't go there. Just don't go there, trust me. But yeah, I mean, honestly, the best tip I can give is just have dude friends or watch TV with men and not anime, please, not anime. Watch normal human beings on TV, men, and copy what they say. Even if you don't understand what they're saying, just copy them and don't copy the woman and you'll be fine. That's my advice on that one. So next one I've got is from the Pixel Traveler, which is, let's have a look. What Japanese meals do I like? And have I ever tried to make a complicated traditional meal by myself? That's an interesting one. I once fancied myself as a bit of a cook, but not really for Japanese. So Japanese food and cooking. So I guess two levels here. I cook. What I learned as a kid, I never really got into cooking Japanese food. I mean, some of my favorite kind of meals my wife makes really well, like Japanese meals. I love oyakodon, chicken and egg on rice. I like it pretty simple. Stir-fried meat and veg. I like Korean food. I buy Korean sauce and gochujang, which I mix up. And I eat a lot of kimchi. I like Japanese kimchi better than Korean kimchi. Make sure I'm safe saying that. But, butakimu, I like that sort of stuff. One thing about Japan is that when you're living alone, it's really not economic to cook. Unless you're eating like cup ramen. If you like cooking like proper meals, ingredients here are really expensive. You could save a lot of money cooking as a student in New Zealand, but in Japan, your bentos and your eating out is so affordable, and your products are so expensive that I really got out of the habit of cooking for a long time. And yeah, I'd eat out a lot, and when I do eat at home, it is all pretty simple. So I couldn't really say I've ever really tackled a complex Japanese meal, although, I'll cook roasts, I'll cook, different sort of meals at home. Although there again, I'm just thinking nothing really complicated. So yeah, I mean, probably the most complex Japanese food I'd ever do was, making different types of sushi and stuff like that, which I used to do when I was in New Zealand, but I've never done since I've got here. I don't even have a sushi set. I've never made sushi once since I arrived in Japan, although I used to have sushi parties once a week when I was in New Zealand all the way through university. So life is funny like that. So what kind of Japanese meals do I like? And this is, I guess, I start thinking about if I go out. Honestly, I mean, I really love kaki fry, Hiroshima oysters, deep fried. I love wako tonkatsu. I love that chain, wako. I love their meals. Deep fried pork. I like okonomiyaki, but I haven't had it for a long time. I guess, I used to make okonomiyaki at home a lot. That's really easy to do, and that's good fun. I don't know, what else? What kind of Japanese foods? I mean, I like shogayaki. Of course, I like yakiniku. But yeah, I don't really go out of my way for traditional Japanese food. I'll have it if it's there, but I just have generally what I like day to day. I hope that's helpful. That's not really very good, but the truth is I don't really think very much about even whether what I have is Japanese food or not, so it's kind of a tough one. In cooking, I actually really like to cook Korean food, actually, although which in Japan, of course, is extremely popular. And Zero Sonica, no, I don't think I've ever ordered tonkatsu instead of tonkatsu, although I have been in a restaurant telling a client once about how I really enjoyed going to, I went to Kamakura for the weekend, which I mispronounced Kamakura, and yes, I got a very embarrassing but fun reaction to that. Scroll down and catch some more topics. So indeed, I posted some topics at about this point, and I started getting some reactions. So let's go through. If you're checking the video information, I posted 9 suggested stories that I thought were interesting that I offered up as subjects to talk about. And so the first one is government to boost immigration. And boom. So what was really interesting about this one is from the cabinet itself, they've kind of realized that if they want to sustain the population at 100 million people, which they really have to do for all sorts of reasons, to be able to sustain welfare payments, to keep the elderly looked after, and to sustain the economy, they really got to have about 200,000 immigrants welcomed into Japan per year. I don't know what the actual figures are right now, but they certainly aren't getting 200,000 immigrants at the moment. So the link under the video is link number 2, I believe. And the site which I linked this one from is from Japan Crush. By the way, this is all found, I tweet all of these, so you can follow them on my Twitter account, and I make a little magazine which I curate every now and then called Hikosaemon, which is where I took this from. So definitely go and find those and subscribe to them. What was interesting was it's pretty rare to see immigration policy openly debated in Japan, which I've said many times before. I'm actually kind of happy with it that way, because I don't want there to be, xenophobic policy discussions. It's kind of nice. You just leave it to the government, and they know what has to be done. They know that they need to basically make sure people come in a way that they're assimilated into the society well, but at the same time they have to boost the number. So they talk about this here, and how the cabinet is now really seriously looking at boosting immigration, like realizing probably that the birth rate is, a lost cause. And so what's really interesting about Japan Crush is that they take some of the big Nichan, 2chan aggregators, and they translate the base articles and some of the most interesting comments and reactions, ones which are representative. And bearing in mind that 2chan is pretty much full of neither in employment or training, stay at home 20, 30-year-old men kind of thing. It's a certain demographic, which lately has also been synonymous with being kind of right-wing and conservative. It is a big demographic, and it's kind of interesting to see the reactions granted, these are by young people who are probably not well informed about the issue, but this is, but that's what you got to deal with in every country. So looking at the Japan Crush article itself, people talking about how trying to compensate for the declining birth rate with immigration is just stupid. Next person saying, "Are we going to quit being? Is Japan going to quit being Japan? This is just how stupid is this? This is a massive problem." And a lot of people linking to the problem of giving foreigners the right to participate in politics. There's a big kind of right-wing movement against that because they're thinking, of course, about Chinese and North Koreans, and they're afraid that there are neighborhoods and areas where there are large populations of Chinese and North Koreans that could come under foreign control. And it's true. I mean, America doesn't allow that either, but a lot of Western countries do, and so they react to that. Instruction: young people learn lots and have lots of children. But yeah, I mean, that's probably an old person who wrote that. Look at the other comments. And what's happened to the US and Canada who've taken immigrants? Don't tell me the person responsible for this calculation doesn't even know. Well, I would point out that just about everybody in America technically is an immigrant, except for the very few hard done. I mean, definitely, if the Japanese people are to end up in reservations, like happened to the original Americans, and I'd say they'd be pretty rightfully upset. Hopefully it won't be a policy quite like the invasion of America and most of the New World, of course. So it's all pretty much to say, what a stupid, oversimplistic thing, people aren't thinking about fixing the birth rate. Well, which they are thinking about fixing the birth rate, but frankly nothing's working. Maintain the population by taking immigrants. They will just want to exploit Japan. And then and all that'll happen is that people from an unnamed mainland and peninsula will flood over here. So basically, exactly, that's the fear. I mean, that is the fear when you talk about immigration in Japan. They're not thinking about me or most of you. They're thinking about nearby countries, China and Korea, North Korea, South Korea. And they're afraid of, face it, if you're living next door to a country of more than 1 billion people, you do want to consider the impact of opening immigration. But there again, of course, this is it. People aren't really thinking about the subtleties of immigration policy. Japan can choose the criteria for the people it takes in. It doesn't have to take in if they're not comfortable with taking people from China. But, no, they've just got a ridiculous policy they definitely shouldn't carry out. I'm against taking in immigrants. So this is exactly why you can't really have the debate here or, frankly, anywhere else is the same, frankly. But this is kind of why. It's a little bit disappointing, but unfortunately it is probably more normal than not. So Sean Goss... Sean Goss pointing about the sales tax increase. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sales tax increase. So this is another one. Back in the good old days, back in 1990, 100 yen coin, you could buy anything with a 100 yen coin. 100 yen coin would buy you a can of Coke or any kind of soft drink. It would buy you half of, everything was kind of based around the 100 yen currency. And then, the bubble, one of the things with the bubble collapsing was they increased the sales tax. And so everything in vending machines became 110 yen. And then somewhere just around the time that I came to Japan, that became 120 yen. It was kind of a common theme for people like talking about like dramas. I remember dramas where they'd have the setting of a beautiful woman coming back from living overseas for 10 years. I should be shocked at seeing the vending machines with 120 yen on them instead of 100 yen and not having 10 yen coins to use so she couldn't buy a drink. And it's going another step. Now with the upcoming tax increase starting where sales tax goes from 5% to 8% as of April 1st, they're adding another 10 yen. Coca-Cola announced the other day that all of their vending machine sold drinks are going to go from 120 to 130 yen, which isn't quite the 3% increase. There's a bit of profiteering obviously going on there, but Abe wants there to be inflation, so I guess maybe that's part of the good thing, but it just means we're going to need more and more of these annoying damn 110 yen coins to be able to buy these drinks. Kind of sucks. It's interesting though, a lot of places are doing the standard kind of 10 yen kind of increase, And this is going to go up, I think, to another 2%. It's going to be, sales tax is going to go from 8 to up to 8% in April, and then 10% later on. But some places, some places are already just raising their prices 10%. There is, I think it was Matsuya, the beef on rice, not Yoshinoya, but their main competitor, announced the other day that they are actually dropping their prices by 10 yen, something like from 280 yen to 270 yen, in order to compensate for the upcoming tax increase, so that the price will stay the same, which got a lot of cred on the internet. I mean, where most of their customers come from. But yes, 130 yen for drinks coming up soon, which kind of sucks. It is what it is, I guess. But so it'll be interesting. I mean, will this really be something that can help the economy? Who knows? The next topic is, a lot of people seem to like, I keep typing on the wrong keyboard. International marriage meet. So the next one is a tweet I actually caught on my Flipboard app from Molly Boyne, one of my readables, where he caught a local the article is in Japanese. It's the first topic on the list under the video that I proposed, where apparently in a recent there was an international matchmaking party for couples interested in meeting and marrying people from other countries in Kyoto, Japan's traditional kind of heartland. It was kind of an ad put out for anyone interested in coming to a matchmaking party with a view to marriage. And the attendance statistics came out, and it was attended apparently by 36 Japanese men with 18 foreign ladies. So, the foreign ladies have a 2-to-1 choice ratio. Not bad. And consistent with the impression that you get of a lot of men kind of wanting to meet international ladies, but being a bit shy, but more men than women. Then it seems like there were 12 foreign men who attended the matchmaking party. I guess if you're a foreign guy, my experiences, I've always wanted to actually go to an omiyai, a marriage matchmaking party. But of course, the problem is you're having too much fun most of the time to want to go to a marriage party per se. But 12 foreign men attended, and the number of Japanese ladies who attended was 325. So, I mean, bear in mind this isn't Tokyo. This is, Kyoto's a big city and it's close to Osaka, but it is definitely a bit more rural and there are less foreign men. Also, probably from a traditional culture perspective, it's one of the more demanding areas. Kyushu is very famous for being very, men, old-fashioned Japanese men, and women are expected to be very Japanese traditional image, Japanese female, and that can drive a lot of Kyushu ladies to foreign men. I guess Kyoto might have a little bit of that going on as well, but that's quite a ratio, 12 men to 325. How does that work? So that's like, my math is weak, but I think that's about 25 women for every man. So yes, next time you're in Japan, go to Kyoto and go to these matchmaking parties, because that is quite a statistic. I must admit, I'll be curious just to see, how all that goes on. But yes, that was interesting. So Pixel Traveler has another topic as well from one of the topics that I posted, which is apparently Japan was recently listed on the U.S. Human Rights Report, hate speech. Was listed up by the U.S. State Department on its human rights, shopping list of the world, which always really seems to aggravate China. Now they're like doing a revenge human rights list back against America, which, let's face it, I mean, America isn't exactly a beacon of human rights that it was once perhaps seen as. With between NSA and 2 wars and drone strikes and everything like that, America can't really brag about human rights anymore. But at the same time, I'm glad that there is a country taking an interest in watching and speaking for the human rights violations around the world, particularly with countries like, China and North Korea. However, apparently Japan made the list this year, and there was particular attention paid to the fact of this of hate speech. What they're referring to specifically is that, hate speech isn't regulated in Japan, as indeed it's not in a lot of countries. It's regulated in Germany, I'm not sure if it's regulated in America or not, but this idea that there's some types of incitement, speech for incitement. In UK, it's regulated. You don't have free speech to incite violence or hatred based on religion or race. In Japan, there's no such regulation, and there's always been kind of anti-foreigner groups in Japan, or extreme right-wing groups. But there's been one very prominent group called the Zaitokai, which has attracted a lot of attention lately because they've basically gone with their black buses and their flags and everything into the Korean town called Okubo, basically near Kabukisho in Shinjuku. And almost every week they've been marching down the main road, a small group of them. They video their own demonstrations to kind of show they seem to be pretty good. They understand where the rules are, and they basically go down to be as unpleasant and inflammatory as possible, but without getting into violence and whatnot. And this is where you have the situation because of the laws. They go down this road telling the Koreans to die, telling a fifth generation special residents, like people who have been born in Japan for generations, saying that they should all be deported or killed. The nastiest type of racist speech, actually, like the stuff which really is illegal in most Western, most OECD countries and most modern developed countries. It's illegal, but it's not. There's no legislation for it in Japan, and usually it's the people sitting watching who react to it who are pulled up by the police. And they show this so that they video it themselves and say, oh look, there's another hot-tempered Korean, reacting, breaking the law in Japan, get rid of him. But it's pretty nasty incitement. And of course, the thing is that while this is a small group, and it hasn't been covered that much by the media in Japan, it has been covered a lot by the media in South Korea and in China. And it's painted the fact that they've been prominent since before the election of Abe. But particularly in the last 2 or 3 years. And they've really, really kind of been nasty. And by the way, what the Zaitokai is focused on is not so much immigration per se of Koreans and Chinese, as the very large population of, I think, 600,000 South Korean citizens, 300,000 North Korean citizens who are born in Japan. And as special permanent residents who are born in Japan, they have certain special rights above other foreigners. Where, for example, they can work in the civil service or they can receive social welfare that even if I became a permanent resident, couldn't receive. And there's been a move because they are, well, for example, they're reputedly, for example, in control of pachinko. Jake Adelstein's book mentions that people from these groups are disproportionately represented in the mob in Japan. They have a lot of economic power and they have a lot of political influence, through. Technically, it's against the law to receive funds from non-Japanese citizens, and one way that some politicians get tripped up is, they're caught having received a definition from a zainichi, from a special permanent resident who uses a Japanese name that they didn't even realize wasn't Japanese. But it's a breach of the funding laws to receive money from them. However, through whatever ways, there's a lot of they have a lot of reach with Japanese politicians. And one of the bills that came up in recent years was a bill to allow those special permanent residents to participate in not national but in local elections. The far right in Japan saw that basically, who already sees North Korean, with some logical reason, I guess, to some extent, when they see North Koreans in Japan who are educated in North Korean schools with pictures of Kim Il-sung on the walls and are indoctrinated according to the North Korean education system while living within Japan. These people are seen as fifth columnists who would work counter to the interests of Japan, and certainly the whole abduction. Well, the abduction thing is another complicated factor on top of that, because one of the reasons that a lot of people always denied that the abductions were possible was because you already have a fifth column of hundreds of thousands of North Korean residents in Japan who would happily help North Korea train spies if they needed them. And it was actually the fact that North Korea was kidnapping Japanese people was kind of a sign that they didn't trust their own people in Japan, which again caused a lot of, and actually apparently, according to a lot of the weeklies, it caused a lot of North Koreans to actually naturalize and to take up Japanese citizenship, kind of in protest against their own government when they found out about the abductions. But certainly, probably all of those things, the abductions, it was a bit of a groundswell of, and this bill coming up, proposing special voting rights for foreign residents, kind of mobilized a lot of the far right. into a movement. A lot of the supporters of Tamagami prominently opposed. They rallied around this opposition to allowing special permanent residents the right to vote. And one of the most active and most unpleasant groups that does this, and that goes and protests in front of North Korean schools and goes through Okubo telling them all to die, is this group Zaitokai. There are some YouTubers, even J-vloggers, who have actually taken up this issue and have said some very, very nasty and unpleasant things on YouTube and on Twitter and whatnot about these sort of topics. But at this. It raises a lot of passion, just like it does in America. The idea of allowing, unregistered, Mexican immigrants to receive social welfare, for example, makes a lot of people upset in America. It's a similar it raises similar passions here. It sparked this whole, hate speech debate here as to whether, these people are allowed to go in front of a school and say all the kids who are foreigners should die, and there isn't a rule to regulate that. Surely we're missing a law or two here. And, the U.S. Human Rights Report, I think, is right to highlight that. There was actually news on NHK tonight about a civic group of Japanese citizens and made up with some local foreign residents who have been going around Okubo erasing graffiti, racist graffiti, which... and this is the other complicated thing about this debate. The racist graffiti, for example, they're cleaning up, and the hate speech graffiti, and this is all a nice thing, showing Japanese citizens, helping to clean up and showing that they're embarrassed by this. At the same time, I see an article on Itai News showing some photographs of some of the racist graffiti, and pointing out that the writing style is a Korean writing style. Like, you can tell the inflection on the, for example, chon, which is a word used, offensive word used for some Koreans. They actually write the chi the other way, the same stroke order as in writing Hangul, Korean characters. So, all of a sudden, all of the right-wingers on Nichan say that all of the racist graffiti was drawn by Koreans against themselves. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but there again, they found some examples where, I don't know, but kind of makes some sense. I mean, they show it wasn't written naturally, and some of the Japanese is a bit strange on some of the graffiti. I'm presuming a lot of the people who wrote that graffiti were kind of retarded anyway. And of course, there is the other thing. It gets super weird when you get out to the far right of Japan, like when you get to the black buses, because when you get to the world of the black buses and the real military uniform, the nasty, nasty right-wingers, you have to understand, while there are a lot of genuine right-wingers who are genuinely fanatical about, those kind of far-right issues, at the same time, you do start to get into a world that mixes up with organized crime, with these violence groups, which are heavily made up of, displaced special permanent resident Koreans who participate in these violence groups. And it used to be a political trick that you would actually pay money to a mob syndicate to go and campaign for your opposition in Japan in order to kind of discredit them and make them look like extremists. And a lot of the weeklies like to go and cover how some of these kind of pay-for-hire extremist right-wing groups, that go around with the imperialist flags, with the Hinomarus, with the Asahi flags and everything like that, are actually made up by people who freely admit to being, special permanent resident Koreans. There's a high representation of Korean residents in the extreme right-wing groups. Although I would hesitate to say I don't think there's a high representation of those sorts of people in the Zaitokai, which specifically attacks the meaning of Zaitokai, is that they're the association to consider special rights for permanent residents. So they're specifically aimed at those special permanent residents. So while they are reputedly all over the far right in Japan, I guess not in that specific group because it's exactly against them. It is unpleasant. And and to their credit, Suga, this cabinet secretary, and Abe, I think there's a linkage in Korea to the revisionism and right wing, shift to the right, perceived shift to the right in politics. It seems to have accommodated this kind of rise in hate speech. I don't think it's that simple, though. Certainly, again, some of the people who advocate those policies, who are definitely against the local voting rights, are definitely supporters of Abe and far-right candidates who are becoming more popular, but I don't think they're as linked as perhaps it appears in Korea. There again, it's one of those things, it's like Taiji. I really wonder at times if Japan appreciates what an image problem this is causing for Japan. And that being the case, I mean, I think they should legislate and do something to shut this sort of thing down, because it just makes Japan look so bad. It makes Japanese people look so bad, and I really hope that they, I mean, police should be able to stop a protest group that's coming through and, is being violently racist and, incendiary towards people based on religion or race. I mean, I think that's just a common sense thing, and if there should be a law for it. But even then, a human rights law in itself is something which is controversial in Japan. Some of the far-right groups who are against the same two things, one for the special rights and one for the human rights law. And they say if you have a human rights law, we won't be able to regulate against mob. Because mob is made up of people with tattoos, people from lower caste, Doha people, a lot of Korean people. They use this discrimination in order to, to stop associating with mob in Japan. And it's tough. I mean, but at the same time, I mean, it's no excuse for not having a human rights law. and if you ask me, probably the fact that there is no human rights law and that there is this kind of prejudice is part of the reason that you have antisocial groups made up of these people in the first place. I mean, if you're not gonna integrate them in the society, they'll choose to operate against the society to some extent. I mean, this is the experience. I've just watched all 3 episodes of The Godfather recently, and this is what happened. I mean, a lot of the Italian and the Jewish minorities, when they came into America, they now are very upstanding and respected communities, and they've integrated. But when they were ostracized from the society, there were small groups within those groups. And I say this as having some heritage from that area myself, that acted in antisocial ways. And this is why I think it's important to have an open immigration policy and a rules-based society that opens and welcomes and does not ostracize these people, because these people are not, you're not going to control them by isolating them. You're going to turn them into people who will act against you. Embrace, don't fear, just control it, do it the right way, if you ask me. But yes, indeed, it's good on the United States for raising the issue, if you ask me. So now I've lost my place on the comments, but let's come back. Oh wow, there's a lot of comments. Okay, I'm gonna speed it up. And in fact, see, this is the thing. The new comments are all out of order, and I lost my place. And let me just come down and see if I can find it. Is swimming popular? Okay. I think I found it. There's the 500 yen. We got the male, female. We got the 200,000. Okay, so I think I found the place. There is the Human Rights Report. And next topic, freelance in Japan. Topic idea from Alex Stratus, who actually had a few topics for me. So yes, I will freelance in Japan. I'm going to keep this one short because I don't have a lot to say. I've always worked in companies in Japan and been kind of looked after as a result of that. So yeah, I don't really know how freelance. I know a lot of people who work freelance, a lot of people who do very well, and who describe why it's a much better model for being in Japan. But starting a business as a foreigner, there are lots of websites, and you should Google around a little bit. There are some good websites for foreigners on starting businesses in Japan, and a lot of people have been very successful at doing it. I don't know the difference between that and native. I've helped Japanese people and foreign people set up big companies in Japan. That's part of my old job. But I don't know. But it's one of those things. I've got a lot of friends who have wanted to go out and do that, and some who have done it. Danny Chu is one of the big ones from our sort of world. But I don't know. But lots of people seem to do it. Another good topic. Buying v renting. Buying versus renting. That's another interesting one. The market has gone down over the last 20 years, and there have been more people renting. And I've been renting myself for a long time. At the same time, with the sales tax coming up, there is a bit of a boost of people buying at the moment. And I'm feeling some pressure to look at buying, but at the moment, definitely renting has been the trend, and a lot of wealthier people as well. And I've seen a lot of stats showing that people who have rented in the last 10 years have been a lot better off. I don't know whether that's a good sign or a bad sign. One thing to bear in mind, of course, in Japan, and there was an article tweeted by Rochelle Kopp. It's in my Hikosaemon from tonight about she tweeted a podcast about Japan's disposable real estate market. This whole idea that, you know, they only leave houses and buildings up for 20 years and then they knock them down. So you never recover your investment when you buy. And there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, it's money down the drain, but you have a lot more flexibility. So, you know, from my perspective, at least for Tokyo, I'm still of the mind that while I am myself starting to look at the idea of buying, renting is definitely, I think, the best option for me. But that's a really interesting thing at the moment, and the real estate market is really, is really flexible at the moment. You know, like some parts of Tokyo are up and some are down, and it's very hard to track. But yes, and Alex, I talked about the sales hikes a little bit with regards to Coca-Cola, so I'm gonna leave it at that. But yeah, you know, the sales tax hike is affecting a lot of people are rushing to buy houses before April. Of course, you know, 3% makes a big difference on a real estate purchase. And there again, even if you wait, it is going to go up another 10% probably at the end of the year, up to 2% to make 10% total. So a lot of people looking at buying, but, you know, I don't know. We got to wait and see. So now we are on to comments that I hadn't seen because I've been following the top since the video started. So let's go through. People from the UK, good to see you. White Magic, sound is good. Oh, so this is where we were at the very beginning now. I've got up to the beginning, and there were a lot of comments, so that's a good thing. The Taste 1962 asking, why are Japanese peppers so small? And as I said, it's not how big it is, it's how you use it. But I don't know, they're smaller, it just happens. Who knows? A question, Barringer, good morning to you, sir. J-Hill Life, quick question. When is the YouTube Hanami party going to be? Good question. That is being left up to Kanadajin 3 and her friends and Tikyo Sam. I think everyone is looking at the first weekend of April right now. I know that Victor is planning to come to Tokyo at that time. So I think that is the time that you want to be coming here. It's going to be certainly around the start of April is the current predicted peak. So you definitely want to come. I think probably planning for the first week of April and just hope there isn't any crazy weather that makes it happen earlier. The problem, of course, is that, you know, there's no point going to the park if there's no flowers there. And when the flowers come, you can predict generally, but, you know, it comes down to when there's from here on out, there's warm, cold, rain, wind, and it's always changing. So it's kind of hard to nail down when it's actually going to be. But I'd say at the moment, yeah, first week of April. So keep that marked in your calendar. My Hakanauts asking, pointing out, you need to learn how to see these comments when you're doing a hangout. So yeah, I have the recording all happening in a computer over there, and I'm watching on a separate computer with a separate connection, so I'm not taking away from that connection, and I'm just watching the comments page just normally. One thing is that if you set up a live stream, which you can do based off a hangout, you can have the comments come up beside the video, which is a lot better, you know, for being able to keep up with everything going on. So Narcissus, how relieved was my missus when Liverpool won the last game? She was very relieved. Thank you for asking. No, that was a good night for everybody, I think. Yes, and indeed winning again last night. That was also good. Stubuya talking about holding the government building side of Shinjuku down. That's right, the Korean town, tough place to be. Hey, Frederick Coney, good to see you, man. Robert, 1967 Canada, good to see you from Toronto. Man, that is like party central. You have like the It's funny, I've read interesting things about that mayor. I mean, of course, he's a train wreck of a human being, but it sounds like he's one of these guys who like personally responds to like every constituent pothole question like ever, and that's something which I can understand would give him a lot of support, even for all of his obvious human flaws. Toronto, Party Central, Political Party Central. Claude Speed 30. 9:03 in New York. Hey, New York. So I guess it's coming up on 10 a.m. in New York, but good to see you guys. And indeed coming up on 3 p.m. in Yorkshire. Barnsley. I'm mostly Yorkshire heritage, so not that I've ever been there, but there you go. Bronte country, North Yorkshire for me, but there you go. Yaku Nidell, good to see you as always, Yaku Nidell. Everyone's saying hello. This is all the hellos from 50 minutes ago. And I said I'd keep this under an hour, so I'm going to massively accelerate now. San Francisco, Frank Bambino in San Francisco, good to see you. Konbanwa from Mumbai, India, in Nihongo. I actually discovered, I kind of knew about them, but I never made contact with them. I actually made contact with some cousins, second cousins technically, but a lost branch of the family tree in Pune, which is I think about 3 hours from Mumbai. Big family there. We connected over Facebook and we started doing some phone calls the other week, and it's awesome. I mean, they're basically an old, relative, a kind of an aunt of mine, married an Indian civil servant 50, 60 years ago, moved to India with them and had a big family over there. And now they have a whole big family of people who look totally Indian. You never question that they're fully Indian, but they look like me. And it's really, really cool. So I'm going to be going to Mumbai sometime soon. I'm going to go and meet the cousins in Mumbai. It's kind of awesome, and they were totally stoked to have a cousin living in Japan. So it's kind of cool. We got the Indian. I mean, I'm there. Well, I showed them pictures of my lad, who's actually is a lot like what they are. They're half Indian and they become progressively more Indian, just like I've got Japanese in the family tree now. So yeah, it's kind of awesome. I mean, I've got an awesome family tree. I've got like Egypt, Turkey, India, America, India now, Japan now. So it's pretty awesome. So definitely good to see you from Mumbai, in Nihongo. Shogunzilla asks a good question. Why Mr. Donut is not as good as Krispy Kreme? I don't know. It's funny. My wife isn't into donuts, and I don't get to eat them very often. Although I've had Krispy Kreme a couple of times, and frankly, I didn't get the big deal about them. I think with the working holiday visa questions, Tubi has a comment about working in where there's alcohol or hostess bars. But again, I think a lot of people work in bars on working holiday visas, if that's the question. Indeed, Ryan Platts, you knew. That's right. I got some Yorkshire. I draw a Yorkshire crowd. So yes, indeed. Good to see Yorkshire represent. Yes, that's right. Why the Shogunzilla asking why there's no Dunkin' Donuts in Japan? One of those articles that I had linked in the video information explains Dunkin' Donuts bought out Mr. Donuts, but Mr. Donuts was so successful in Japan, even though it failed everywhere else. They actually just stuck to Mr. Donuts, and they actually use the name of their competitor, which they bought, instead of their own name in Japan. That's why it's the same company. Andy-san, I guess this is a long time ago, but have a good night. And Krispy Kreme as well. Yes, that's right. UK Hiko fan club. That would be disturbing. But I appreciate the sentiment. Oh yeah, Andy was on a podcast with Kevin. I'm going to check out Kevin's podcast myself, but good on him for doing that. And I've got to keep up more with Kev as well. He's doing all sorts of cool stuff. I can't keep up, but I'm sure he's the same with me. He's much more diligent than me. He's a better person than I am. I'd love to go. And you know what? My sister lives in London, so there will be a meetup, or there will be a trip to London. I'd love to do a meetup on a chance over there. So who knows? Could happen. Frank Bombina, yeah, too bad about the working holiday thing with America. Go tell Obama to go and allow Japanese to have working holidays. I mean, if they're going to allow any country in the world to have working holidays to America, surely Japan would be the one that you would allow, and that way it becomes mutual. Shogunzilla, yeah, Burger Kings had a mixed history in Japan. They actually are now, as of right now, there's a lot. They're making more of them now. For a time, there were lots of Burger Kings, and then they got bought out by Lotteria, and then they got sold, and they disappeared, and now they've come back again. But they come out. McDonald's has been very, very successful in Japan. Obviously, they've been here for a long time, and they've never really failed. Wendy's as well is another one, which I actually prefer to all three of those, and they've come and gone, and they've kind of failed and succeeded. So yeah, it's pretty tough, But there are a couple of Wendy's, I think, in Tokyo right now. There's a lot more Burger Kings now. But yeah, what can you do? GSCEIT is yes, talking about Ukraine. And I've had a few comments on this, which I've put onto Facebook and to Twitter. A lot happened overnight, actually, a lot more than I was expecting as well. I was expecting they might go into Crimea, where it's majority Russian, and frankly, they probably gave Crimea to Russia back in the 1954, never really expecting Ukraine and Russia to actually split. And now it is, and now you have the situation of a probably kind of anti-Russian government coming in through, frankly, well, let's face it, is a coup d'etat. What is interesting is that what's happened is that, as of yesterday, Putin's talking not just about going and helping out Crimea, but actually the whole country in terms of securing the country for Russian-speaking citizens who are all over the whole country, but also, talking about gas pipeline infrastructure. Russia sells gas to Europe through pipelines that go through Ukraine, so making sure that there's no sabotage, which is kind of reasonable. At an extreme, you could point out that Russia or the Soviet Union made most of their power plants, including Chernobyl, of course, which is in Ukraine. So, yeah, they could be going in to go and secure everything. Plus, of course, they don't want Ukraine joining NATO and having missiles pointed at... they don't want to have a NATO country directly on its border. They want Ukraine to be a buffer country. Interesting history with Ukraine as well. And this is another thing. There's a lot of parallels with Syria, if you ask me. That, the West is kind of rushing to support the opposition. Because they seem to be against the people that the West is against. They're against these totalitarian governments and whatnot, and that's all great. But we're not really thinking very hard about who we are supporting. In Syria, it was obvious from the beginning that you're supporting jihadis, which obviously are going to include Al-Qaeda affiliated groups. Just as in Ukraine, for various complicated reasons of history, for the Ukrainian nationalists who wanted to be independent from the Russian Empire and from the Soviet Union. The Nazis kind of did them a favor, and a lot of the Ukrainian partisans in World War II fought on the side of the Nazis. This was a brush that the Soviets used to taint the Ukrainian nationalists after the war, that anyone who opposes us must be Nazis. But this also is part of the reason why, if you want to be anti-Russian Ukrainian nationalist, you kind of wave a swastika around every now and then, and there were neo-Nazis armed neo-Nazis involved in the protests against the pro-Russian government who've taken over. And again, there's a historical explanation for why they are oriented that way. But, I think everyone's very blindly throwing support behind this opposition, which is just pretty much taken over Kiev, without really thinking through or taking a very good look at the people that they're supporting. And what does that mean? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if Russia's going to go and invade again, I guess, give them some help and whatnot. But, it does represent a double standard that we only support democracy unless the democracy doesn't like us, and then we'll support a coup. And, of course, you think about this whole thing about opposing Crimea seceding and going to Russia. But, everyone supported Kosovo. They supported Bosnia and Slovenia when these were not really feasible countries, and it wasn't really a good idea to have a huge war allowing them to secede. And NATO, was in bombing all over Serbia to support Kosovo being independent. Here you've got Crimea, which actually is a far more feasible and a far more historically, and geographically linked to Russia area. And NATO. So again, there's some obvious double standards on both sides. But that said, no question, Putin's clearly... he's not even looking at whether there are lines to cross or not. And I don't know, it's obviously not a good time to be in Ukraine. I actually have, did the genealogy thing once, which took me to Moldova in Romania, which is actually, I've driven all along the Ukrainian border from Moldova and along the Danube River. I've been to the border point where Ukraine and Moldova and Romania all meet. And I've got old family postcards to relatives in Crimea, which we always in the family knew as being in the Russian Empire. So it's kind of funny. I've been to that corner of the world, although fortunately not the part actually inside Ukraine. But definitely do not see much point in allowing that part of the world to become. I mean, at the moment, if NATO and America get into a conflict with Russia over Ukraine, that's World War III. And I'm thinking, I really like everybody to think a bit about that. But what do you do? I mean, geez, Russia's been a bit crazy. Everyone's being a bit crazy, frankly. That's kind of scary. It's kind of, it's definitely interesting to watch. So yes, and according to the Japanese news so far, no Japanese hurt, so everything's good. I'm out of time, and I made it over an hour, even though I said I wouldn't. But this is such a good kind of a thing, so I'm gonna skip over. Hey, Apocalypse 34, good to see you, man. We have Zero Stickers, people looking at their 500 yen coins. Emily Louise Maitland, updates on the Hanami, like I said, first week of April, so go and check that out. Keep up with Tikyo Sam if he posts anything, or maybe Canada Gene 3. I think they're organizing. Indeed, as my Argonauts just confirmed, Taco Bell. Taco Bell does exist, Shogunzilla, on the US base in Atsugi, I think. So you need a base pass or Data Marine, I don't know, but you can get Taco Bell. Americans, I don't know why they go so crazy over that. I've never had it. Must be good, because I don't understand why people always talk about it. Although, they say there's no good Mexican in Tokyo, but I met a few good Mexicans. They're good people. Narcissists, yeah, and again, honestly, probably your professors and person to person will give you much different comments about using different terms. I don't think a qualified educator, certainly not a female one, will ever say it's okay to use ore. I'd say come over and observe the context. The point is they'll tell you that because they feel like they're going to be blamed for you using it inappropriately, so they just don't want you ever to use it. And it's true, you don't want to ever use it the wrong way. But it's a tough one, the self-reference. Yeah, shongos, oyakudon, awesome stuff. Put some chijimi on it, that's right. Some chijimi, bulgogi. Korean food is awesome, honestly. My Argonaut saying that he's never heard female students using ore, and it would be weird if they did. I actually know a guy who was married to a Japanese lady who was probably a bit strange because she did say it, but that's the only case of a woman I've ever heard of using it. So yeah, some people talking about the 500 yen thing. I'm skipping over. I'm sorry if I'm missing your questions, but I'm skipping over. I'm talking about England. Francesco Garafalo is asking, does anyone know if being a US veteran can affect getting a visa? I don't think it would be negative. I mean, there are so many troops here. America practically defends Japan single-handedly. So, but I don't know if that affects visa or not. Good question. In Taiwan, love to go to Taiwan, by the way, and they've got awesome food in Taiwan, of course. Subtleties in immigration and thinking don't go together well in Japan. And name for me a country where subtleties in immigration and thinking work anywhere. It's just not a conversation that any country seems to be able to intelligently have. Even Switzerland. I mean, am I right, Chris? They just had a referendum on putting in draconian immigration restrictions, which is what anyone does if you put it up for debate. So, you have to really think about it. Talking about vending machines and Coke, and I'm going really fast now because we're out of time, and it's all talk and deed, and you talk about these hate groups, and I see there's a lot of reaction to hate groups talk, and that's right. Stubiya asking, or some people asking about the Hanami, which I hope you've gotten now. Ahmed Zombie, indeed, Ahmed isn't here today, my man in Algeria. I don't know, he's probably watching all the shenanigans on the news. He seems to be good at keeping up with all that stuff. The Pixel Traveler, my pleasure answering your questions. The Kamakura Gay Club, no. The Kamakura Club is it's the hostess bar location. Who knows? Could be both types. Yeah, somebody help out Francesco if you know. But I don't think it would affect. I don't think it would. Might not help. Might not affect. It certainly wouldn't affect negatively. I don't think. It's just 10 yen, quit bitching about it. Well, it's just 10 yen, but it's just a pain, It means you've always got to have a bunch, pardon me, a bunch of 10 yen coins in your pocket, which is just a hassle to carry around. There again, everywhere uses these IC chip cards to pay nowadays, which makes it, I guess, more convenient. So, yeah, drinks in Australia. Indeed, Melinda Haley, drinks in Australia and vending machines. One, when you can find a vending machine. Two, that has even a choice. And 3, that has anything you'd want to drink in it. It's way overpriced. That's true, but Japan, Japan are the world leaders for vending machines, so we hold it to a higher standard. KHK NYS, you made it late, but you're always welcome, of course. And now we're up to 11 minutes ago, so I'm going well. So Tishinu is asking me, do I believe that freedom of speech laws in Japan should be more strict? Yes, to the extent that Japan doesn't actually have freedom of speech laws. So I suppose there should be freedom of speech. Or there should be laws with reasonable restrictions of freedom of speech, like there are in most countries. I think that there should be some. I don't think you should be able to advocate criminal or religious or racial hate. But I think those are reasonable categories of restricted freedom of speech. But, that's up to Japanese people to decide for themselves. in a way, I kind of hope that all the negative attention that all this hate speech problem is drawing on Japan might be a good prompt for them to look at that themselves and look at regulating it. Called Speed 30. Yeah, well, I haven't actually heard that exact thing, but there's certainly someone on that same political bent, at least being against the special rights for foreigners and so on, which is a reasonable position to hold. But I've heard some crazy stuff from one or two people, but, I'm not going to say who they are. I think it's okay to debate the policies, but yeah, and certainly no one gets quite as crazy as saying that they should kill. I think that would actually get your videos taken down from YouTube. I know that the law allows that degree of freedom of speech, but YouTube doesn't, and that's a good thing. Teaching you saying, yeah, keep it the way it is, this is a democracy, and that's true. The freedom of speech is a whole big debate, right? I mean, everyone says, of course, freedom of speech, but to the point of anarchy, to the point of, shouting out there's a fire in a movie theater. There's always that kind of a thing. A death threat's an obvious, like a specific death threat or a blackmail threat or whatever. There's different types of criminal conduct. The only problem is that racial hate in Japan itself is not legislated. So that falls under the category of protected freedom of speech. Question as to whether that should be the case or not, but, that is what it is. And Shogunzilla saying stalking is also legal in Japan, right? Though the police have a bad habit of giving stalkers their victims' addresses, it's not legal, and there is legislation to kind of boost the regulations against stalking. But that said, there have been some unfortunate cases where police have accidentally given the information of stalkers, of victims to their stalkers and so on. There's been the track record of police properly enforcing that. It's improving, but it still is pretty terrible, and there have been some recent cases like that. It's definitely not legal, but it's just not very well enforced. And I am up to date on the comments. Just time to sign out. How did you enjoy the show? You like this? I'm back here every week. And look at that, just as I do that, I'm seeing a lot more comments now, but you know what, I think I'm going to have to draw a line because, Gigi Ryder's asking how often J-vloggers meet. Generally twice a year, once in October, once in April, once for the Hanami, once for the summer party. I organize the summer party. Kuni has always organized the Hanami, but I think Hikosaemon is going to do that this year, but I'm going to help out to the extent that I can. That's been awesome talking to you all. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope I was able to cover most of your questions. There's some great questions tonight. Hope you love the format. We're going to be back this week with 2.5 Oyajis. Jake Adelstein, it looks like, Jake Adelstein has had a flu, and it sounds like he's been down. I'm going to try to get in touch with him and maybe try to get him on for next week, if not this week. He's been covering a lot of interesting stuff about the Bitcoin collapse in Japan, the Mt. Gox Bitcoin collapse, the Olympics and the Yakuza, as well, of course, as a few years ago. So a lot to talk about with him. I really look forward to getting him on. So we'll keep you updated on that. Follow my Twitter. Follow my Flipboard if you like the news and stuff that I talk about. And come back and let's talk again next week. So I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you're well. Great chatting with you all. I love doing this. This is good fun for me. I hope this is good fun for you. Good night, Yorkshire, or good afternoon. And thanks, one and all. Good talking to you. I'm going to sign out. So good night. Peace.